Awah. So within that macroeconomic picture that Richard painted of how it affected the economy, naturally, because the economy has been affected and incomes would have been affected, there would be some effect on the government's wallet or the government's purse. Talk to us about the fiscal implications of the crisis for 2020.
Yes, so as you said, Simon, given the contraction, the government would have seen reduction in revenue, which is basically money coming in. And at the same time, they would have to increase their expenditures to basically facilitate, just taking care of the virus and the implications of the virus, right? So within that context, the fiscal deficit widened, right? So just to give some numbers, not much, but the fiscal deficit outturn as at December was about 70 billion rather, right? Now, it's important that we put that into a more broader context, right? So if we think about what was budgeted, right? The government had budgeted for about 74 billion. So essentially, right, we've declined as it relates to our fiscal balance, but we are within the budget, right? We're doing better than what was budgeted, which is good. Now, it's also important that we think about where we are. I suppose we can say from an historical perspective, right? So if we think back to the most recent crisis, right? We can go back to the global financial crisis in about 2008, 2009. And if we look at where we were back then, which is very important, because it shows how we've progressed. So if we go back to that period, right, and we look at the December 2009, 2010 fiscal outturn, right, we're seeing that the economy or the fiscal deficit was in the range of about 99 billion, right, and which was above what was budgeted of about 84 billion. So if we think about where we're coming from, right, we've stepped up significantly, basically, right? Because more than 12 years into the future, right, we're having a fiscal outturn that is better than the previous crisis, which in our opinion was not as significant as the current crisis right now, right? We also have to consider, as Richard has said, we've been moving towards this framework of macroeconomic stability, right? And that has given us significant cushioning coming into the pandemic. So if you remember, the government would have sold off a number of its assets, including Trans-Jamaican Highway, Wigton, for example, and that, of course, provided some amount of cushioning, which could then be provided to persons within the economy to kind of soften the blow from the COVID-19 pandemic. So overall, over the 2020 period, we say, although the contraction was sharp and significant, right, the government has continuously performed above budgeted and we like the outturn given the context of the severity of the pandemic.
And I want to further contextualize that as well. So if we look at April to December, which would have been the first part of the government's fiscal year for 2020, and compare that to the April to December from the previous year in 2019, we would have realized that it's down. So if we think about it within the space that the government has done supplementary budgets since tabling, because I remember I remember the day because I was I was actually there. The day that the budget was tabled was the day that we had our first case on March 10th, 2020, right? That budget, they would have had nobody in Jamaica had any idea that we would have gone through what monetarily, the monetary policy perspective, the contraction that we would have gone through, and from the fiscal. So that budget wasn't a COVID resilient budget, right? And after that, the supplementary budgets or the updates to that budget after that would have accounted for that.
Yes.
So we would have seen increased expenditure towards social programs and technology, particularly on the education side. And there would have been some accounting for the expected reduction in taxes.
Yeah.
Now, looking towards our 2021, 2022 budget, for that, for sure, it has to be a budget that can, it's going to be probably, in my estimation, one of Jamaica's most important budget speeches in a good while.
Yes.
It's going to tell us what's the government's focus for recovery as an economy coming out of COVID, because we can see the end of the tunnel.
Yeah.
It's going to tell us where the government spending is going to go, given that now how the government thinks about spending and the themes in their budget as it pertains to technology, their use of technology and e-government services, etc. It's going to show us exactly what their focus is will be. So talk to us Awah, about how exactly you would see or what you think some of those focuses should be. So I would have mentioned technology. So talk to me about some of the other themes in the budget that you would like to see.
All right. So I think generally what we've realized is that the macroeconomic stability is paramount. Right, the government has maintained that throughout. So generally, within a recessionary period such as this, you'd anticipate that the government increases its expenditures or reduces taxes, right? And that will, of course, in turn, fuel more economic growth. Given the decline, this is necessary, right? So as we head into fiscal year 2021, 2022, the theme for the government will continue to be this fiscal stability, right? So the targeted approach will then be to maintain what you'd call prudence in terms of maintaining that 60% debt to GDP target, which was somewhat slowed by the pandemic, right?
Back about 2 years.
Yes, so that was pushed back about 2 years. So the government has to actually, narrow their vision and try to basically maintain that 60% target. At the same time, as Richard had mentioned, the vaccine will be basically charting the recovery, right? So the government is then in a position where they'll have to balance the budget in such a way, right, that they try to ensure that we remain on a fiscal stance to ensure that we can make that 60% debt to GDP level while trying to combat the virus, and this will come into spending for the vaccine rollout and administration to get as many people vaccinated as possible. So that will then chart increased growth, and at that point we can think about positive revenue implications. So that will have positive ramifications for tourism, for example. So then more persons can be coming back into the economy, and we anticipate that globally vaccination rollouts would have been more robust, right? So the theme, just to get it back to perspective, the theme or the expectation is that the government will be balancing that debt to GDP focus, right, while doing whatever it is that they can to actually speed up that vaccination rollout to get us on a path back to macroeconomic growth.